prior to this Rockerverb, I'd never actually owned an amp head before. I've had a couple of cheaper combos like the Blackstar HT60 and the Fender Blues Junior, but I've never really had the full experience of an amp and cab setup. I ditched my combos in favour of the Line 6 Helix about sort of 6 or 7 years ago now, and then later switched to plugins and ended up getting a job at ML Sound Lab. So I can safely say that the Rockerverb is my first proper amp. Hey, I'm Kai, and today I'm going to be doing a demo on my new rig, this Orange Rockerverb 100 Mark II with the Zilla 2x12 Fat Boy with cream backs and the 2 Notes Captor 8 load box. I'll do a demo later on with it through the SM57 and my real cabinet, but for most of this video we're going to be running straight into the load box into the Miko 2 plugin. Since I'm in the UK and both Zilla and Orange are UK based brands, I was actually able to pick up both of these fairly cheap on the used market. The head was about £725 and the cabinet was $250. In dollars that's about $900 for the head and about $300 for the cabinet, so roughly $1,200 all in. My thought process behind choosing this rig was chaotic to say the least. Initially, I was pretty set on grabbing the Harley Benton 2x12, the vertical one with the V30s. That was one thing that largely stayed pretty consistent between all of the different plans that I'd had, since they're fairly affordable, fairly well reviewed, and very easy to get a hold of. That stayed consistent right up until I started looking at the used market and saw just how cheaply we can get Zilla cabinets here. These Zilla 2x12 cabinets used are about the same price as the new Harley Benton would have been. So in the interest of resale value, I decided to opt for the Zilla instead. So before even deciding on an amp head, I'd already picked up this Zilla Fat Boy 212 in Orange Tolex, which is a pretty polarizing colour. So my amp plan initially had quite a lot of consistent features. I wanted something that was either low wattage or able to be switched down to a low wattage. I wanted something with a DI output for late night recording. I wanted something that was versatile enough to cover everything I wanted it to do, whether that's cleans, crunch, high gain, or, extreme metal stuff. This led me down a path of some very narrow options, but I ended up trying to choose between the Rev G20, the Engel Iron Ball, and the Blackstar St. James 6L6 50-watt head. All of these amps fit my criteria perfectly. After setting up my orange cabinet with the orange lights behind it, I realised I would be doing my rig a disservice to buy anything other than an orange head. Now, this wasn't purely aesthetic. I know that I love the orange sound. It's something that I've grown up with a lot of UK live shows, since Orange and Marshall are sort of our Mesa and Peavey that you'd get in the United States. They're everywhere at live shows and everyone here is so familiar with the sound. So in looking for orange heads, I had to lower my parameters a little. I realised I wasn't going to get the DI output, so that one was out, and the versatility maybe takes a bit of a hit, but I can always boost that with pedals and fill in the blanks, so to speak. I was now looking for an orange amp with a full head shell, a 3-band EQ on both channels, and hopefully an attenuator. This is where the waters started to get a bit muddy. The TH30 had pretty much everything I needed other than the 3-band EQ section. The weird single shift for the tone stack doesn't really speak versatility to me, so this one was out. The Rocker 15, as much as it would have been a great option, it didn't have the full orange head shell, and I really feel like I needed that for this rig. The OR15 was another one that was really high on my list. However, with the single channel, this one was sort of out quite quickly. Finally, there was the Rockerverb Mark III 50 watt. This seemed absolutely perfect. It's got the attenuator, it's got the 3-band EQ, it's got the full head shell. However, at sort of £1,500, it was a little bit out of my budget. A somewhat haphazard purchase led me to buying this Rockerverb 100 Mark II. I thought I was getting the Rockerverb 50, though I guess you could say I got a better deal than I thought, so, you know, maybe it's not all that bad. Now, the Mark II version of the Rockerverb doesn't have any of the attenuation options, so the 2-note load box was an absolute must. But, you know, even with the price of the used Rockerverb Mark II and the load box, it's still extremely short of where the Rockerverb Mark III would have costed. In accidentally buying the 100 watt, I kind of wish that I went for the Captor X rather than the Captor 8, as the Captor X has got a minus 38 decibel pad, while the Captor 8 has only got the minus 20 decibel pad. Now, this isn't too much of an issue. The minus 20 decibels is still plenty for what I'm trying to do with it, but, you know, I do wish that I'd bought the X instead. So, my absolute first impressions. This amp is very, very heavy and very, very loud. Even with the minus 20 decibel attenuation on the 2 notes, I still can't get the master volume up above sort of like 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock at a push. Initially, when I got the head, I tried to run it without the load box and nearly blew my ears up. It was insane. I do think that was partially due to a weird quirk about this amp in particular. I'm not sure if it's a dirty pot or what, but the clean volume at 0 is kind of maxed out. It's only when you get up to 0.1 that it starts to actually taper like you'd expect the volume control to do. So after turning it on, hearing that blast of noise and panicking to flick that off switch as hard as I could, I realised it would probably be best to learn the amp through the load box into Miko 2 instead. I plugged my amp into the speaker in of the load box and then ran an XLR out into my interface and just ran straight into Miko 2, completely ignoring the cabinet in the room. I have to say, for my first proper experience with a tube amp since going digital, I wasn't feeling that magical, warm, fuzzy feeling I was expecting to feel. Let's hear some more riffs through the Miko 2 plugin. I'm using my PRS S2 with the Seymour Duncan Sentient and Pegasus pickup set. It's currently tuned to drop C and it rips. In Miko 2, I've got a single SM57 loaded up on the mega oversized cabinet. This is just a super simple mic up that I feel is pretty inoffensive and inarguable. All the knobs on the amp are set to noon, other than the gain and the volume controls, which are just set to taste. So while we've got it hooked up into the Miko 2 plugin and not into the real cabinet, this is the perfect time to test the versatility of the amp. Mainly because I can turn the master volume on the amp up a lot louder without angering my neighbours, breaking noise violation laws, and, you know, inevitably getting kicked out of my house. We'll try and go through a sort of range of different styles and see how versatile this amp can be. We'll start with the cleans, of course, and then move our way all the way up into high gain. So it's already getting pretty hairy and the volume on the amp is still very low. Let's turn the volume up to halfway and get sort of a pushed clean sound. Alright, now let's switch over to the humbucker in the neck and see what that sounds like. Yeah, I like that. Let's switch over to the dirty channel and we'll try some sort of crunchier rock stuff. Yeah, this isn't really where the amp shines, but it's there if I need it, and that's what matters. Let's now dial in something with a little bit more gain before we go into the full metal territories. So I think this high gain tone is going to be perfect for showing off what happens when you roll off the volume knob on your guitar. The real amp is very responsive to this in a way that I've not really heard in plugins before. Yeah, I'd say in plugins, usually you get a little bit more noise attributed to, using a DI and an interface and everything. Whereas with the real amp, it's a much cleaner roll-off. Now let's go for something all-out metal. Alright, so we are starting to get a little bit more noise as is expected with this higher gain tone. I currently don't have a noise gate, but hopefully that will change soon. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. That is too much gain for what I was doing there, but I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. So don't get me wrong, the Rockerverb sounds fantastic. It sounds exactly like I'd want a recorded Rockerverb to sound like. However, it's not giving me that magical, warm, fuzzy feeling that I expected to get from a tube amp. It was far from a noticeable difference between this and the Amped Oracle plugin that I was so familiar with. Let's hear these on a quick back-to-back. Now these are based on different amps in real life, so these sounds might not be perfectly one-to-one, but it should be a good example of what the two sound like. Before I get into it, I have to do the YouTube thing. Please drop me a like, drop me a subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know what you think of this demo. It really goes a long way to helping me out, and I'm on the path to 1,000 subscribers, which is incredible. Now it's time for the comparison. Actually, with the volume knob rolled back, it's probably worth us doing another one with the guitar's volume knob rolled back so that we can hear what the differences are. Now at this point I was feeling pretty bummed out about my purchase. It's not bad by any means, and I'm, perfectly happy with the sounds available. However, it's not giving me that magical feeling I was hoping to get. Perhaps I held tube amps in too high of a regard, and maybe plugins are just, perfect counterparts nowadays. So I waited patiently for my partner to wake up before trying the next bit, running it through the real cabinet with a microphone on it. Now this is really where I started to notice the magic of real amps. Or should I say, the magic of real cabinets. I'd be interested to know if the same effect can be had running a power amp with plugins into the real cabinet in the room. The microphone on the cabinet acts as something of a filter. When you're in the room with the cabinet, that filter is taken off and you're hearing all of the frequencies the cabinet is pushing out. Now, as Jim Lill said, if you've got an example of an unmic'd cabinet, I'd love to hear it. Everything will act as some kind of microphone adding this filter, so I can't show you what it sounds like to have the cabinet in the room. However, I can show you what it sounds like with a single SM57 placed somewhere near the center of the speaker. Regardless, let's hear what it sounds like through the cabinet. Now the main reason I bought this amp and cabinet setup was for use with pedals. You've probably seen on this channel, but I'm pretty obsessed with guitar pedals. I'd like to hear what they sound like through a traditional amp and cabinet setup, the way the pedals were designed to be heard, rather than my usual of running them through a plugin. Now the Orange Rockerverb isn't particularly well known for its ability to take guitar pedals, but we're going to hear it anyway. So for the final part of the demo in this video, I'm going to run my Mosky Golden Horse and the Moore R7 reverb through the Orange Rockerverb 100. I'm going to run through the dirty channel of the Rockerverb with the gain on super low, and I've got the clon into the front end and the reverb in the effects loop. Let's hear that. Finally, let's have a quick discussion and a conclusion about this rig. Is it the magical cure-all thing that's going to make me feel all nice and warm and fuzzy inside? Probably not. Is it a fantastic amp and a lot of fun to play through? Yeah, I think the experience of playing through a real cab is incredibly cool and not to be understated. However, I don't think any of this magic can be attributed to the amp itself, as fantastic as it is. I am definitely happy with my purchase though. This is an amp that's been on my radar ever since I was sort of 15, 16 years old, and I'm so glad to be able to make it a reality. I'm just generally having quite a lot of fun playing through it. You can expect to see it on the channel quite a lot more in the upcoming videos, especially the one with the HX1 that should be coming out soon. So that's everything for now. Please drop a comment letting me know what you thought of the video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps me out. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your comments on this one, as you know, it's a very divisive topic. That's all for this one. I've been Kai.